Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today at the RSA conference. I am, as Alan said, CXO advisor to Netscope. I'm on a board of cybersecurity advocacy and education nonprofit, and a recovering CIO. So I invite you in this session to join me in reflecting on parallels between IT and cybersecurity, CIOs and CISOs, and hopefully some of my war stories, anecdotes, and bruises can help you on your journey. Make you think, make you chuckle, make you frown, whatever that is, and take something away with you. Before I start, a quick show of hands, if I may. Who considers themselves to be a cybersecurity leader? Please, hands up. Very cool. And aspiring leaders? Also a few in the room, so thank you very much. That will help me focus the conversation. Now, a disclaimer, as per usual, and we can start. A few years back, my two sons, age 8 and 10, are having a meltdown, a major meltdown, because their parents would not buy them a Nintendo Switch or an Xbox for Christmas, which we refused to do out of principle. And they were crying and using exactly the words, "We are the odd ones out," because everybody else in the school is is playing together, and we are excluded. Now, in a grown-up world, in a world of CIO life, I am a newly appointed CIO in a company, reporting to the CEO and member of the executive committee. So things are starting all right, from the setup at least, and then comes the very first board meeting. And guess what? The video equipment would not connect to the presenter's laptop. And everybody stares at me, and the only thing I can get out of my mouth is, let me call the help desk. Fast forward 10 years, a group of CIOs, 7 of us, sit around the table and we talk about talent. We've all got our bruises and everything else. We talk about what were the challenges, what do we have in common, and so somebody then brings up, I wish someone told me that the biggest enemy of a CIO is the AV equipment. You can't believe the relief I had in that moment, and at the same time, that realization, I thought it was just my own utter inadequacy and incompetency and whatever. And that realization that those situations are not just us, they in the very same way affect others. So I hope some of my stories you'll find similarities to what you are going through, challenges you are facing, and the opportunities that are lying ahead of you. Now, for the CIOs, looking at the journey of every CIO, some of us are there, some of us on the path. What did we come up against? I haven't seen an IT department that wasn't blamed for something that had nothing to do with us. As a cybersecurity community, how many times are you blamed for something that you say, this is really not your turf? And IT was, as per usual, is too slow, too expensive, and by the way, no one knows what we are up to anyway. And what did we need to learn to shift that? There I take into my mouth the swear words of soft skills. We needed to learn a different language. We started in tech because I wanted to do tech. I didn't come into tech to make someone happy and be a counselor. So learning the new language, learning to speak with the business, and in some ways, getting to become trivial. So there's all that sophistication that we're proud of to deliver, and yet all we want to do and all people expect from us is actually to talk to them in a very real and simple terms. Creating engagement platforms beyond the projects. There's a drive of when we have an initiative with a particular goal, then we'll get people to the table. But looking at how do we broaden this? How do we create some cadence out of that and keep those relationships. And last not least, reframing politics to stakeholder management. What did it bring us as CIOs is we became, or collectively on a journey from being a back office function to having a seat at the table. And the value of having that seat at the table is how about getting that budget you're fighting for approved easier and with less friction? How about having different conversations with the business and being able to challenge, to criticize, to suggest new ways of doing things? And how about earning a bit more money? If I'm allowed to stick to money and remuneration, there are two things that, and I found myself, by the way, massively underpaid at some point in my career. So if you are, that's not something that's very particular to you. There are two aspects to any remuneration or financial compensation of our work. The universal one is broadly driven by three dimensions. It's a budget you're responsible for. It's a time horizon, the outcomes of your work influence. Is it short-term tactical, mid-term, or strategic? And it's the scope of your work. So it's what you do. Do the outcomes form a foundation for your team, for your business unit, for the company as a whole, or broader? And there is a specific angle to CISOs. A firm called Russell Reynolds, some of you may know executive search consultants who are known to be hiring CISOs. They came up with a CISO assessment level model, CALM. As every maturity model, it starts kind of with the basics at the bottom and progresses, so starts with a level 1. I would call it a tactical CISO. In Russell Reynolds' language is partial, and moving up to level 4, more transformational or adaptive. And if we look at the 4 dimensions that distinguish the top level CISO from the rest, is number 1 is automation. How good are we at automating, especially now in an environment where the skills have never been more scarce, where the complexity has never been greater. Looking at the end-to-end and 360 protection for the organizations, so convergence of digital and cyber, physical and digital, looking at different modalities of technology, driving decision-making through data and analytics, insights, and last not least, shaping the culture towards cyber. The leadership angle of that model. So what are the individual attributes that contribute to where you're at? And if we first look at the conversations, the nature of relationships, are they transactional or are they relational? The styles of interactions, are they reactive or anticipatory? And at what level does the organization influence go? Is it a IT and cybersecurity, or is it at the level of executive committees and boards? So double clicking on that, and of course you see the direct relation to the remuneration of a CISO, and looking at the leadership competencies required in the upper levels, it's indeed change orientation, influencing and collaboration, and the strategic capability. Now, truth be told, it's not all about us, what leadership qualities there are, but also the design of the organization. And the good old risk assessment, probability and impact, take it to the level of the organization and organizational understanding of itself. If the probability of a compromise is low and the impact is minor, then as much as transformational CISO and cybersecurity function you want to be, and you are, you end up being in the trenches and in that tension of not being that appreciated, and actually being frustrated, banging your head against that wall. And so that realization of where is the organization at, what kind of CISO does the organization need, as well as how does it match my capability? Going away and reflecting on that may be a useful step in your professional journey. It certainly was one for me, and I ended up walking out of one role after realizing I've done so much and transformed so much, but does the organization have the appetite long term in technology-driven transformation, or would my skills be better somewhere else? So again, asking those questions helps us grow, helps us make the right choices. So the world stories for today. I try to cover two aspects. Number one is the day-to-day, what are the challenges, where did I find myself, and then looking at the transformational aspect, driving change, and making sure that change is successful and sustainable, as in it will sustain different cycles of organization and time. Number one, let's start with the universal wisdom. Best part of my career, I was focused on quality. Quality was the number one. It's the values I grew up with also as a person, and be it implementing new systems, be it improving service, running a P&L, whatever that is. And I was proud to have the reputation in organization of being less of a political-oriented leader, and I hated politics. Until I reframed what politics meant to me and changed it from its politics to acceptance, and I invite you to share that reframing with me. Because friction is ubiquitous, and people are trouble. As one VP of HR once told me, the interests of departments, the conflicts, the understanding of what's important and not is by its very nature very different. And unless you find a way to connect the initiative you drive, the agenda that you have, to needs and wants of people around the table, you'll be burning a lot of energy and yet still feel somewhat unappreciated, and the whole process is rather tedious. And it took me venting my frustration after a particular situation to a colleague of mine who was working on a different team in the same company, who said, "Do you really think that success equals quality? Not at all. How about acceptance? If you only focus on quality, you become a busy fool. So start doing the politics, start talking to those other people, and never ever disregard the importance of that soft side. I prefer these days human-centric side of our roles that go outside and beyond of our teams and our immediate functions. And to exercise that influence and to look at how do we impact and get the acceptance. One of the tools I found particularly easy to start using is the Can I Pick Your Brains? And this Can I Pick Your Brains starting with marketing. Now, marketing are a difficult stakeholder for any IT organization and any cybersecurity team because they're very special. They work with external creative agencies and whatsoever, and before you know it, they're using SaaS platforms you didn't authorize, and some of them you didn't even know existed. So, but marketing also has a different angle. They are the ones who are really good at communicating. So, getting that coffee with a colleague from marketing, whoever that is that you would pick, and say, can I pick your brains? Before sending out some email to employees or to a broader group of people, before doing a presentation to the business and non-technical people, pick their brains. They love it. people love being asked questions and being to ask for their support. And the same is valid for finance, for procurement, HR, looking at the awareness. How can HR benefit from that initiative you're driving by sharing the credits? Finance, looking at how to get the budget approved. What is their view? Where can do they think can the portfolio be shifted? Do they see any projects delayed, etc.? So again, looking at those people and using them to create that acceptance and to help you drive your initiatives is not to be underestimated. CEOs and boards are very different. They won't listen unless it is relevant. And here the question is, can I align what I do to one of the strategic initiatives of the business? Is it ESG? Is it digital trust? Some organizations indeed have zero trust initiatives at the board level that are driving those. And continuing on the theme of acceptance and looking at how do we influence the organization, how do we create a reputation for our unit by what we say, but also what we do. What I found interesting is there's a cybersecurity saying, never waste a good crisis, that I've learned. Now, to broaden it, you don't need a good crisis to start a focused intervention. And a focused intervention can be creating a platform for people who are opinionated about IT, who have stake in the delivery of your function, and how they get involved, how they get their say in the roadmap, in what we do and how we do it. Again, from my own experience walking into a CIO role where the team had a very difficult ERP implementation, so a major software implementation that didn't go well, and then looking at, okay, I need a statement towards the broad organization, I needed a statement towards everyone, so here was created an IT control board. So we were no longer a black box, but people could see inside. We could also discuss how to prioritize, and it was a joint and a shared decision. Doesn't have to be a massive statement towards everyone. Your little board or committee or whatever doesn't even need to have a name to start with. So be it 2 or 3 people from broad organization who you meet on a regular basis, or who you first meet and then decide, do you want to meet with them again? How do you grow it? How do you start these regular conversations? Whether there's one project, whether there's many projects, whether it's just about aligning the priorities of the functions. Why initiatives stall, some of them fail. I'd like to take you to a big supply chain organization, market leader, but recognizing trucks and sheds are getting increasingly commoditized. Created a new business unit to do transformational deals. So overall market is profit margins in lowest single-digit percentage, and there's nearly no growth. This transformational units mandate, which was also fulfilled, was 5-fold growth in 5 years, and bring the deals in that kind of 10+% profit margin. And we checked all the boxes. So to do that, to do transformation, we needed to break a few rules. So as a VP IT of that division, I not only was responsible for kind of the classical IT, but we run IT as a P&L. So all of a sudden, we're earning money by selling the IT solutions. And that unit was, as I said, super successful. And how do you think the bosses of my boss and the corporate leadership liked us? So much so that the managing director of that unit became chief innovation officer at the group level. But how do you think the peers, the neighboring divisions, how did they feel about that little tiny unit, who they thought were slightly arrogant as well, us being ahead of everybody else, but not contributing the volume that they would be doing, and probably also not appreciating the scale and the inertia that they had to deal with. So the unit was successful to start with, and then we started running into troubles because we were the only ones who had a VP of innovation. We had the only ones who had a VP for commercial engineering, etc. So all of a sudden you find yourself that every single piece of business you're bringing into the organization doesn't go according to the well-oiled process machine of the company, and that's what made us review and do iterations after iterations to make sure that it actually goes somewhere, and the processes and the culture, again, the relationship at the peer level, the relationship with the broader organization, as well as not creating exception with every single piece of business that we did, that it actually did matter. Overcoming organizational inertia. As a leader, I'm on fire. I'm here to make a change. I'm here to drive that change, seeing challenges, seeing opportunities. How do we do things differently? Now, and I see in the eyes of some of the team members at town halls, at skip meetings, at some project reviews, there's some that share that enthusiasm. But usually not all of the leadership team who are with you at the table that share the same enthusiasm. So how to break through that inertia where you say you see what needs doing, and your direct reports seem to be the ones who are slowing it down and who are bringing in arguments why it couldn't be done. So best way to do that, do another project. 1, 2, maximum of 3 strategic initiatives that I would be driving myself, and getting those people with a fire in their eyes onto that project, and without alienating any of the structures and any of the leadership team. And speaking of projects, speaking of getting things done and large-scale initiatives, I'd like to take you to utilities organization, 35,000 employees, about 30 billion turnover. In IT, we had 1,500 people, and we embarked on a, dare I say, data quality exercise. Needed to change the way we work and improve operational efficiencies, cost, and just start speaking the same language. And for that initiative, what I needed were the best people from across all the functions, infrastructure, architecture, enterprise systems, from digital, from the business IT, and how do you get best people onto your project who are already more than busy and where the queue of other projects waiting for them to support. Now, one of the elements that can get you there, or that I found got me the capacity, is to say, can I have them for 20% of their time? And 20% of their time is, can somebody work on my project 1 week a month? Without, and every team, every organization is used to dealing with people's holidays. In the US, probably less so than in Europe, as there's more holidays. But looking at how do we get those people on the board without disrupting the ongoing business. And the way we structured that initiative is, I didn't go out and say, let's go data cleansing and let's go create the processes, etc. The buy-in from the IT team came from, let's transform the IT function from a supertanker to an armada of speedboats. Let's look at how can we do things differently. Selling it to the executives who were responsible for those team members and who had to contribute to the program was, look, mid-long term, your payback is your lower cost. We have the opportunity to improve the service to the broader business. And by the way, we can close a few cybersecurity gaps, such as criticality assessment, to start with. and making the change irreversible. Again, any transformation that it's taking significant amount of time that you would be driving is how do we make sure that what we put in place is not going back to the state before the transformation. So the best designed processes may fail if the decentralized organization doesn't keep that momentum and doesn't keep the processes, etc. And one of the ways is how do you change one of the core processes of the organization to reflect that change? In case of that data cleansing exercise and data quality exercise, and by the way, you can't do any AI without that. So there are so many topics that are very interesting to the organization, but they're built on the foundation of that. We changed the approach to IT budgeting. So we changed from the data center cost UX and the ERP licenses cost UI, etc., to what does a service cost the business? What is the billing, what is operational maintenance, etc. So shifting that and starting budgeting based on our new data model, there was no way back. It had to be maintained, otherwise there would be no funds released for maintenance, for external support, for licenses, etc. And the brief conclusion is, I touched on a few day-to-day situations, a few transformational initiatives, and the big question is, what is it that actually your organization needs, and what is it that your aspirations are? So where is that intersection? And looking at the takeaways and what can you reflect on how to apply, focus on self-advocacy and acceptance, looking at whose brains to pick. Is it marketing? Is it legal? Is it CFO? And how to help you with acceptance. Don't be shy to create a committee or a board to raise awareness and to help get things done. There are two parts to it. Probe execution again and again. So back to the fivefold growth in a commoditized environment. It's the review, readjust, and sometimes take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Who is the next top performer you'll get onto your project team? How do you get them freed up? What's the investment case for the executive responsible for those resources? And what are the creative constellations that you can find to get things done? Again, attaching the results of what you do to major business outcomes and make them irreversible. Again, a number of war stories of cases, but one thing I'd like to invite you to do is reflect on what type of leader you are and what type of leader does the organization need. And the first step is it something, do you want to go onto educational journey and explain to them that there's a different opportunity for them, or is it something to be realistic with yourself and take actions as you see fit? Write down 3 important stakeholders and what do you want them to know about you? Self-advocacy, acceptance. You're not doing it just for yourself, and that was my biggest resistance. We're doing it for our teams, we're doing it for our functions, and for the broad organization. And last not least, here's a coffee drinker, coffee addict speaking. Get a coffee with marketing. Yeah, every single time, as irritating some of them are, or maybe that's the best asset for our communication. And they're so grateful to be asked and to be involved, and not to be thrown something over their heads. So that's it from me for today, and opening floor for questions if you have any. Thank you. So I got 20% negotiated with the senior leadership, with the senior management, and that was the long-term benefit. Your payback is we reduce the cost, your team will have less friction operationally, and the customers will feel better. But the conviction of the team was people support what they create. So there was a lot of, at the team level, there was a lot of their contribution, their working, their jointly prioritizing, etc., to get them bought into the purpose of what they were doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.